with the sideshow lifestyle and glamour. I'm moving to the cemetery, no critics or cameras. I'm stitching up the vein, I've been bleeding for too long. And next time you come to look for me, I'll be gone. In dark like this, all you can do is breathe and try to figure out if you're awake or asleep. In dark like this, there's no sense of direction, just thoughts and questions from a parallel dimension. In dark like this.
This story begins with a hunter in Randolph County, Arkansas. Randolph County is near the Ozark Mountains. It is crossed by 5 beautiful rivers and contains foothills and valleys typical of the Ozarks. It was in these deep, dark woods where a hunter decided to trespass on a one-legged man's land on September 7, 2000. The land was owned by a cantankerous old man who slept with underneath his pillow. The man had only one leg, and he was adamant trespassers avoid his land. Some whispered he might have already lost his mind. Visitors to his home were often surprised and terrified by the number the old man possessed and his willingness to use them if necessary. This didn't faze the hunter, as he was only thinking about one thing: the big bucks that was said to hang around on this man's land. Hunters have keen eyes, and this man was no exception. As he made his way to the creek, an object caught his attention. Protruding from the soft creek bed, he spotted a collection of bones. Bones are commonly found in the woods, but these were different. The hunter suspected the remains could be human. Finding human bones in Randolph County's barren escapes isn't as uncommon or as sinister as one might think. Native Americans settled this land thousands of years ago, and archaeologists continue finding grave sites, especially along waterways in that region. These bones were different. These bones in the creek, owned by the one-legged man, were not ancient or even old. These bones hadn't been there long. They were youthful and small, a young child's bones. What would be learned about the child would not only be heartbreaking, but disturbing. Hello, my name is Holly. Welcome to the MurderSheShed, the place you can hear rarely told true crime right from this southern gal she shed. Hit that subscribe button so you can come join me inside my she shed, usually 2 times weekly. We have been growing quickly lately and would love to have you join us. We can't ever have too many inside the she shed. It's a small place, but we can manage to all fit somehow. Where there's a will, there's a way. Anyway, what I'm saying is I'm inviting you into my she shed. Come on in and let me tell you a story after a hard day at work or just a sad day. I don't know how this will help your sadness because it's sad too, but maybe it'll just take your mind off of your own sadness. And so, there. Anyway, let's get started. It was Wednesday, July 29th, 1998. Very hot, blistering day in Pocahontas, Arkansas. This year was brutally hot. The sun was especially unforgiving on this particular day. Pocahontas is the largest city in Randolph County, and Felicia Elliott, a 27-year-old mother of 2, decided to visit her mother, Mary Controne. She worked at the Pocahontas nursing home. Although Randolph County is a beautiful place to live, it has a dark side too. Drugs are trafficked at a high rate in this place. It's grown in the backwoods, and labs are common. Lisa and her husband, 30-year-old Carl Elliott, and the couple's 2 children, 8-year-old Felicia and her younger brother Gregory, 7 years old, lived in Dalton. Their home sat close to the river. It once belonged to Lisa's grandparents. Her father and stepmother lived in a house trailer just a few yards adjacent to the Elliott home. After Lisa's mother got off work, they went shopping. Each bought shirts and clothes for Lisa's kids. Gregory was a typical boy. He was obsessed with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. If you're from my era, you definitely know the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And kids loved them. And Gregory was one of those kids, and he had to have everything Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. 8-year-old Felicia had just finished the 2nd grade. She was a good student who earned solid marks in writing and reading. The girl with freckles and soft eyes played with Barbie dolls. When Mary departed from her daughter after shopping, it would be the last time she would ever see Lisa alive. That evening, as the Elliott family was settling in for the night, there was a knock on the door. Lisa's husband Carl went and answered the door and realized it was a friend who was parked next to the river and couldn't get his car started. Carl told his family he would be right back and walked out into the pouring rain in order to help his friend. An intercom system connected the Elliott home with Lisa's father and stepmother's trailer. At some point, her father and stepmother heard a loud commotion in the house. Lisa's father was reportedly mentally impaired. His wife was disabled as well. The couple later would say it sounded like hollering coming from the house. If you're not South and you don't know what hollering is, it just simply means they were yelling. There was a lot of commotion in the house going on, and they heard it through that intercom. Lisa's father wasn't sure what he should do, but he ended up calling Mary, Lisa's mom, and letting her know what they had heard. Mary was immediately concerned. Trouble brewed between the Elliots and a few select friends throughout the summer. She attempted to call the Elliots' home and there was no answer. So Mary immediately called 911 and they sent an officer to the Elliott home. An officer drove to the house at 1 a.m. and found nothing unusual. It was quiet inside the house, as it should have been because it was 1 a.m. in the morning. He was quiet. There was no signs of a break-in. Nothing unusual going on. So he decided not to conduct a welfare check, which was a big oops, because he should have done that. The next morning, when Lisa's stepmother got out of bed, she decided to go next door to check on what all the commotion had been the night before. But when she attempted to open her trailer door, it wouldn't open. She was able to open it wide enough to peek out and notice blood all over the deck of her porch. She immediately called police. Randolph County Sheriff Rob Simone arrived at the scene. The Elliott's front door was ajar. He walked inside. Lights flickered and the television blared. Clothes littered the floor. To his left, Gregory was sprawled. The boy had been severely beaten in the head. A forensic pathologist would later say a single blow crushed his head like an eggshell. The killer had then pierced the boy's throat with a sharp object, severing his trachea. He drowned in his own blood. Blood was splattered every corner of the kitchen. One officer would later describe it as a bloodbath. Simone's left briefly to catch his breath. He started to sweat. The lawman walked to the trailer house. The heavy object was squarely in his view. Lisa's body blocked the door. She had been beaten horribly. Her throat was slashed and her bloody handprints stained the door. She had bled to death. The woman had crawled to her dad's house in a desperate attempt to save her own life. Lisa's killer struck her at least 27 times. Carl and little 8-year-old Felicia was missing. State and local police converged. Carl's 1984 Thunderbird was parked near the river 1 mile from the Elliott home. Weeks passed, no arrest. Police had a few clues, though. A bloody tire iron was recovered in Felicia's room. It was a weapon used to kill Gregory, and it was also the same instrument used to beat Lisa. Blood-stained items were removed. Months came and went with no arrest. Police developed a suspect list. Carl was actually the primary suspect. This theory proved false because on August 1st, 1998, Carl's bloated body was discovered in 11 Point River near Dalton. Felicia was still missing, and the madman in Dalton roamed free. The neighbors began to be paranoid that someone would come into their house and kill all their families. Everybody was starting to get a little anxious about what was going on, since they couldn't find who had actually killed this young family. The next suspects would be the local Green family. Carl was close friends with the Green clan, a family deeply involved in the legal drug trade in northern Arkansas and southern Missouri. The Greens were a violent group led by their patriarch father, Billy Dale Green. Born March 14, 1956, Billy was a hardcore criminal with a lengthy police rap sheet. It was reported when Billy was younger, he was shot in the abdomen during a barroom brawl in southern Missouri and nearly died. If he had, this sad tale may have never unfolded. He eventually married a woman named Mary, and the couple started a family. Their oldest son, Chad Wayne Green, was born September 19, 1975. Billy was merciless with his children and wife, beating and mentally them constantly. He was a master cook and dabbled in Teachers reported the Green children behaved relatively well at school, but were prone to emotional outbursts. Billy tormented his family. He beat them, shot bullets at them, and brutalized the children. Mary Green compared their home to a war zone. Billy settled in Warm Springs, a tiny township in the hills near Dalton. Carl Elliott was a rare outsider in the Greens' inner circle. No one, even his close family members, thought Carl was involved in any drug trafficking with the Greens. Family members have admitted Carl was a violent man addicted to drugs. Chad and his brother Jason visited the Elliott house daily. It was because of these connections the Green family became the prime suspects. Police interviewed Chad and Jason Green. The brothers admitted they actually knew the victims, but there was no close connection. Mary Green told authorities she thought it was odd. Her sons never even talked about the Elliott killings. The two families have been close. Jason Green's 1975 Cadillac was searched. Police found 22 caliber shell casings, the same caliber used to shoot Carl. Investigators recovered bloody clothes in a trailer house that could have been connected to the crime. No real evidence surfaced. However, in the case turned cold and Felicia could still not be found. This is how when the hunters had told authorities of his find that fall day in 2000, it was quickly thought to have been the bones of 8-year-old little Felicia. Detectives discovered scattered human bone fragments. Forensic tests proved conclusively the bone remnants belonged to Felicia. Her skeletal remains were unearthed less than a mile from Billy Green's house. Police now firmly believe the Greens killed the Elliots, but no forensic evidence linked the clan to the crime. Interrogations continued. The morning following the murders, Chad Green called his girlfriend at the time, whose name was Bonnie Hensley. She worked as a waitress at Archer's Cafe, a short drive south of the Warm Springs, Dalton area. He told her he needed a ride to her house. Hensley left work and picked Chad up at his home in rural Randolph County. It would have been much quicker to drive through Dalton that morning to get to her house, but he insisted they avoid that area. When they arrived at her home, he took off a pair of camouflage overalls. Underneath, he was wearing a pair of bloody shorts. Scratches and other wounds covered his body. He told her he fought with his brother. Hensley kept the shorts and gave the garments to police. DNA testing confirmed his blood was on the shorts, and there was a genetic profile belonging to someone else. But the second sample was inconclusive. Police continued to review evidence. Without a real break, the case may have never been solved. But Mary Green, the mom of the family, decided to tell the truth. Green matriarch provided investigators with the information they needed. She initially told police Billy and Chad were home when the murders occurred. Now, she said, they were not. Billy left that night to help Chad, she said. Billy told his wife sometime in 2000 Chad committed the murders. Chad disputed this. He told his mother Billy was the true killer. 5 years to the date after the murders, police arrested Billy, Chad, and Jason Green. Authorities realized Billy had a history of being a pedophile. It would soon be learned Chad was just like his father, though. A female relative would tell police Chad forced her to have sex with him when she was 8 years old. He assaulted the girl multiple times in the back of a broken-down car in an old barn on property owned by the Green family. Chad was offered a plea deal if he outed his father, Billy. The night of the murders, Chad said he was at home. His father instructed him to call him if Carl actually came to his house. Carl stopped to talk, and Chad alerted his father. Billy returned to the house minutes after Carl left. Billy hatched a plan. He and his son consumed drugs. They drove to Dalton. Chad pounded the front door. The Doone family welcomed him in. Chad's told Carl his truck was stalled at the river. Lisa made him a glass of iced tea while her husband changed his clothes. Chad asked if he could drive Carl's car to the river. He agreed. When they arrived, Chad told Carl it would be all right, but he needed to talk to his dad. Billy immediately attacked Carl. During the frenzied struggle, Billy asked Carl about his stuff. In other words, he wanted to know where his drugs were. Carl told Billy he and Felicia were the only ones who knew where the stuff was located. I am not sure why a little girl knew where drugs was located, and I'm not sure I want to know. That's insane. Billy shot him and sliced Carl's throat. You never have a sharp knife when you need one, Billy reportedly said aloud during the deadly. Billy had been surprised about how strong Carl was and how he had fought vigorously to save his own life. Chad just fled the scene in terror. He hid underneath a bridge. Billy ordered him back to Carl's car. They then drove back to the Elliott home where Billy killed Lisa and little Gregory. Little Gregory was horrifically wounded, but the final blow for the little boy came when the killer jammed the sharp end of the tire tool into the little boy's throat. Lisa was beaten nearly to death with the tire tool. Lisa was beaten like a rag doll in the kitchen. Her body sustained multiple blows. Blood coated the cabinets, the floor, the refrigerator, and the walls. The men then entered Felicia's room. The tire tool was dropped among the stuffed animals and toys littering the floor near her bed. Felicia had hid under her bed. They pulled her kicking and screaming out from under her bed as she was begging for her life. They duct taped her. The murderers took Felicia, wrapped in a blanket, outside. Something odd suddenly appeared in the yard. It was Lisa. She was still alive and had crawled out the kitchen window. Unable to stand, she dragged her battered body through the mud and grass in a desperate attempt to reach her father's trailer. Her killer acted quickly. As she reached the door and possible safety, her throat was slashed. Her autopsy photos were so gruesome that the jury had trouble looking at them. Her head had been shaved bald. Wounds covered her scalp and face. The slash mark across her throat was clearly visible. They had tortured Lisa before her death. They had taken Felicia, Billy would later say, because they wanted to enjoy her. After coming back to the Green family farm, Billy put Felicia alive inside of a barrel, along with his bloody clothing, and used bungee cords to strap the lid back on. Remember, it was an extremely hot summer, and this little girl was kept in a hot barn inside this barrel for days, only taking her out so they could assay her before putting her back in. Several days later, Billy told Chad the little girl had to die. All good things must come to an end, Billy told his son. Chad didn't want to kill her, but this time he had fallen in love with Felicia. Billy and Chad drove to a remote creek with Felicia in tow. Billy carried her to the water's edge. Felicia begged for her life. Please don't kill me, she pleaded. Billy Green slit the girl's throat and she drowned in the creek. Lisa Elliott had learned weeks prior to the murders that Chad had already been little Felicia. Lisa then told Carl she was going to the police. That's when Chad asked to meet with Carl to talk. There were rumors of drug-fueled parties in which Felicia was dressed in provocative clothing. Grown men asked her to dance on a table. These men watched as she danced. It is thought Chad often visited the Elliott family in order to get his hands on Felicia. Chad and Billy Green were both convicted of the murders in 2004. Billy was given the death penalty, while Chad got 40 years after agreeing to testify against his father. But the saga was not over, because in 2006, the Arkansas Supreme Court overturned Billy Green's sentence after ruling that improper testimony had been allowed. However, when prosecutors announced they would retry Billy, Chad then refused to testify against his father. But this time, Chad lost his gamble. The court ruled that by refusing to cooperate, Chad had voided his original deal. He was then sentenced to 4 life terms in prison, 40 for the kidnapping and another 56 years for 2 young girls in an unrelated case. 2012, following a retrial, Billy was sentenced to serve 4 consecutive life sentences for the killings and 40 years for the kidnapping. Billy and Chad Green are what you would call some of the world's worst monsters, and they definitely deserve to rot in prison. They deserve much worse, but fortunately, that's all we can give them. Horrible, horrible. I don't even want to call them men because they're not considered men in my book to do that to that little girl. Hugging her in that hot barrel. Can you imagine how scared she must have been inside there? And the lack of air that was in there and the heat and how smothering that would feel. After researching this case, I might have nightmares about this because it's just awful. I can't imagine what that little girl went through. Only to be brought out to be used by these men. They were just disgusting men. They deserve so much more than what they're even getting. Anyway, I told you were going to end up sadder than when we began, and I'm sorry about that. So I'll try to leave you with a few bloopers. I'm probably got some, although I don't have Simon because I didn't want to turn the air conditioner because it messes up my mic and it's hot in here. So I was like, you can just stay in the house, baby. Simon's my German Shepherd. And usually he's on every video, but I just didn't want to put him through the heat today. So he's inside enjoying life on my couch. Anyway, I love y'all. And like I said, just be blessed, be a blessing to others. And I'll see you soon. Bye. Crap. For the 50th time, rewind. Grown in the backyard, backwoods. Shit. Gregory was a typical. If you're not from the South, you might not know what hollering means. It just means there was yelling happening. That's just what we say here in the South. Billy ordered him back to Carl's car. That's hard to say. This is funny, guys, because you know what? We lost our house because of the tornado, and now we're going to rebuild. Well, my husband, we're going to have an upstairs, but the only thing that's going to be up there is a man cave. Since I have a she shed, he thinks he needs a man cave. Hey, maybe he'll do a YouTube video in his man cave. Nah, that's not his thing. I don't know what he's going to be doing up there, and I'm not even going to ask. I don't know what this man cave's for. Let's just let him do his man thing up there, whatever he does. Not getting involved in that one. My son was funny. He said, Dad gonna put a swing up there. And I said, good Lord, I hope not. You better find something else to do with his man cave. I'll pass on a dungeon up there. I do too many of these serial killer freak stories for that. Sorry. Anyway, that's a whole different subject. We shouldn't even go there. Actually, tomorrow I'm going to go float down the river in my kayak, and I'm going to go catfishing with my brother and my husband and my son and his girlfriend. We're just going to float right down that river and go catfishing. So maybe I will catch y'all sometime this week with this video. Anyway, I love y'all. Have a blessed week. Bye.
Here we are again. Just you and me. Well, here it is. It's been a long road, y'all walked it with me. From the podunk towns to the frosted cities. We've seen the hard times, we all thought of quitting. Never got kissed off, just left the bottle spinning. Kids games for high stakes and big breaks like